Hey guys, and welcome to this week's edition of the Lessons Learned podcast. And today I'm privileged to have Deb Patterson from Pilates by Physio on. If you like what you see on the podcast, make sure that you follow, you share, and give us a little subscribe. And if you want to come on the podcast, we'll put a link underneath. And you can be exactly like Deb in the hot seat. So before I do you an injustice and try to introduce you, Deb, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, as you said, I run Pilates by Physio. I was physio in the NHS for many years, and after the birth of my kids, I felt like I wanted a little change in direction. I wanted to have the ability to have a bit better work-life balance. So that's when I started Pilates by Physio. I think it was, coming on for 11 years now.
Time flies.
I know it's nuts, isn't it? But it just started really small, just a couple of classes on top of what I was already doing from a physio point of view. And now we've got 2 studios and about 35 classes running each week. So
where are the 2 studios based?
In Heswell.
Okay.
They're right beside each other. There's a mat studio and a reformer studio.
Okay, right, fair enough. What inspired you then to go? Obviously, there's a lot of people that are probably in the same position as you that kind of juggle wanting to kind of do their own thing and having a job as your physio kind of on the side and not being able to jump and actually make that commitment. What inspired you to go, right, I'm just going to do it?
Yeah, I think really the kids was the main thing. I felt like I was getting to a point in my career. I was working in amputee rehab, which I absolutely adored. It was a really, really fulfilling job. But because of all the changes that were coming in with the NHS, I just felt like I wasn't being fulfilled in my job because I wasn't able to offer the patients what I knew I could. I just felt like there were so many restrictions on, how we could work with their rehab. So I wanted to feel a bit more fulfilled in what I did, and I wanted to offer what I knew I could. And then kind of from a financial point of view as well, working for myself gave me, I guess, the ability to earn what I wanted to earn. I was probably really lucky in the fact that once I left the NHS, then I picked up some private work. So I didn't necessarily launch myself fully into my business full time initially, and I was able to organically grow it. I would say it took about 4 years before I was fully working for myself. So I know not everybody has that ability to be able to do that. But I was lucky in that respect. So I didn't feel like I took a massive leap, but every time I just cut my private hours down, every time I did that, it did feel like a big leap at the time.
Yeah, but I suppose that's the take home from that, isn't it? Is you don't have to do it all in one go. You can do it in bite-sized chunks to make it more beneficial for your kind of work-life balance and not just go all guns blazing, I suppose.
Absolutely. I think there's lots of different ways of entering it. And had I to do it again, would I have taken that leap? I think knowing what I know now, I might actually have done it, because I think a lot of it was self-confidence and lack of self-belief that I could make a go of it and that there was a big enough market out there. But, now that I know there absolutely is, I do think there is that opportunity to just go and just delve in.
I think that's a lot of work. Thing about confidence. Like I think there's a lot of people these days, especially kids coming out of school, that aren't confident enough in their own skill set, whether that be they haven't learned it in school or they don't feel like they're prepared for work on the outside. Actually having confidence is probably the biggest lesson I learned when I was younger, was if you walk into a room confident, everyone's going to look at you. If you walk into a room where you weren't confident, no one's going to look at you. So you need to kind of portray it even if you're not feeling it inside necessarily.
Yeah. And I think it's not until you start doing that you realize that everybody else is doing the same thing. You're looking at other people who are mega confident, and actually whenever you get down to it and you start talking to them, you realize that they're feeling pretty much the same inside. So
exactly, totally agree. What would you say would be your biggest lesson that you've learned in that process that maybe you wish you'd known now, wish you'd known at the beginning what you know now.
Yeah, that you can make it work. If you want it enough, you can make it work. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I talk to a lot of people now who are kind of at the same point that I was 10 years ago. And I'm just like, just have that confidence in yourself. And, you know, you've got to be prepared to put the hard work in. It's not easy. I definitely think taking the leap from a really nice, financially secure job where you just literally close the door at the end of the day and you don't have to think about it until you go in the next day. I think, you know, that is a little bit of a baptism of fire. But I think if you're prepared to accept that and put the work in, then I'm pretty, you know, I feel like anybody can do anything that they want to do. You know, you put the work in and you can do it.
I think it's always, people always think the grass is always greener. So I think when you're in a job that's quite structured and you're getting your money and you just close the door and you go home at the end of the day, in comparison to being in business where you are literally working all the time, whether you like it or not, whether it just be an email on the phone or whatever. But then some people go, oh, I really wish I had that guaranteed salary, and they go back into a corporate job and they're like, oh no, it's so difficult to transition from the two. And I think once you get into it, it's so hard to move back into
and I have to say, you know, when the times have been really tough, you know, like COVID and coming back, and you know, I think business is not linear. You know, you've got your ups and downs, and you know, I have went and done job searches and everything when I found it really tough, and I was like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't go back to, you know, not having the flexibility and not being, I'm a bit of a control freak, so not having the control as well.
Yeah, I don't think you understand what your for me, I always thought that I was quite flexible between the two, and I think I could go back into a corporate role. But for me, that flexibility of being able to go on holiday when I want, or choose to take a day off because something's happening. I went into a corporate job recently and they were like, so you have to book off your holidays. And I was like, what? I was like, absolutely not. I can't go full time if I have to ask someone permission to go on holiday. That just doesn't work for me. And it gave me anxiety. And I think you start to realize those things that really matter to you, don't you? That those little tiny points.
Yeah.
So what? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, the likes of, you know, this week, it's the end of year and school plays and sports days and, you know, all that sort of things. For me, obviously, it's a lot of the flexibility is around the kids, which I think is really good.
I suppose on that note then, how do you, and there's a lot of people in your situation who are kind of in the grind, trying to get the business up and running, maybe a bit earlier than the position that you're in now and having the 2 studios, but how do you advise people to manage their work-life balance with their children?
It's hard. It's really hard. I think you've got to be strict with yourself and, you know, making sure that everybody around you, I'm so lucky that I'm surrounded by an amazing team. And I guess it's just making sure that everybody around you knows that you do have boundaries. And when I'm with the kids, I want to be with the kids. So I make sure I don't have my work emails on my phone or anything, because I find that really stressed me out. But I know other people thrive in that and they don't mind, and they don't mind being on call 24 hours a day. So it's kind of working out where your boundaries are to look after your mental health.
Yeah, totally.
And setting those boundaries and trying to stick to them. And it's not always that easy, but I think if you explain to people the reasons why you're doing stuff, I think most people are understanding and you can set those boundaries. But
yeah, I think we've come into a day and age now, and you can even see it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn used to be this like job recruiting tool, whereas now everyone's authentically saying about their struggles with concentration or working in an office or the work-life balance, and everyone's so authentic and open about talking about these problems. So actually you're saying there, be honest and say, listen, I'm spending time with my family and I want time with my family, and people will probably appreciate that more.
Yeah, no, I do think they do, because you know, everybody's got their own story, everybody's got their own struggles, and you know, we're not machines, we're not put on this planet to just work. I'm, you know, that's one of my big things. I feel like I'm not here for a long time, but I want to make it as kind of fruitful as I can. And I think everybody else is probably, you know, similar. And what's fruitful for one person will be different for another. But I think if you're honest with what makes you tick, and if other people can help you, you can help them. And it hopefully will lead to harmony, not always, but
You've got to try though, don't you?
yeah, absolutely.
How did the business, I hate talking about COVID because I feel like it was such a difficult time for everyone in so many different ways, and we've kind of tried to get through it. But how did you, as a business that's quite physical, and obviously people come to your class, how did you run the business, or did you close it, or how did you cope through COVID?
So I was really lucky on one hand that I had just completed a course, a cancer rehab course that was put on by really, really good physios in New Zealand. So I'd already been exposed to Zoom. I'd already been exposed to that kind of online environment. So literally the lockdown, I think, was on the Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, our classes were on Zoom.
Great.
And it was great. You know, our clients embraced it. Obviously not all of them. Some people just didn't find it worked for them. But, you know, I think I was really lucky in the fact that I had the knowledge to be able to go, right, okay, just switch. And so we did it like that. Obviously it was affected and we did lose a lot of clients. And our classes were condensed. One of the things I wanted to keep it running as much as possible, obviously for myself, for the clients, because for them, you know, a lot of them said that it was their one time that they kind of got a bit of release, that, you know, they got their exercise, they got a little bit of interaction over the cameras. You know, the other girls that taught for me as well, they were fantastic. They were still in their NHS roles, but they still tried to keep as many classes going as they could. So yeah, we lost a lot of clients. We probably dropped to about half of our capacity. And then we kind of did some online stuff. So actually, as a business thing, gave us something which we had been thinking about for a long time, which was having like a pre-recorded library of classes. So it actually gave me the opportunity to create this new service, really. And so we still use that now. So a lot of the clients buy that alongside their classes. So they can do, I've got 70 recorded classes in a library, which, you know, that worked in our favor.
It definitely made businesses pivot, didn't it? So you had to kind of open your mind and expand into that digital world.
Absolutely. So as much as it created a lot of stress and anxiety, it actually did enhance and gave us something that we wouldn't already have had.
Yeah. So I suppose we haven't really touched on, we've just said that you have your two studios. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the classes that you hold, and kind of your little specialisms, like the people that you work with, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so Pilates, I think it's come into the forefront a lot more recently, but it's been going from the First World War. Basically, it was a form of rehab for prisoners of war. So Joseph Pilates had polio as a child. He had quite a few physical problems. He had breathing problems. He was in a prisoner of war camp, noticing that it was a hospital, noticing that all the prisoner of wars weren't getting better. They were just lying in the bed. So he fashioned a load of springs and pulleys to their bed and got them exercising.
Okay.
So that's where it came from. It kind of took a little detour down dancing route and everything, but I think it's now coming back to the rehab, protection, rehabilitation side of things. So that's where having our physio knowledge feeds in really well.
Yeah.
So we run mat classes and we run reformer classes, which again is really becoming quite popular, but again has been around for years. And they're like it's difficult to explain. You nearly need to Google it, but they're like a moving platform on a bed, and it's controlled by springs and pulleys as well. So kind of
actually a lot of celebrities do it, don't they? I've seen it popular or at least on social media with celebrities of
absolutely. Yeah. But it's, you know, those origins, I mean, we try not to go down the celeb route. So I really want to keep our classes real, and you know, there's men and women, all shapes and sizes, all ages and everything that do the classes. And what our kind of USP really is the fact that they're clinical classes. So we get a lot of people with back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, recovering from surgery, cancer, you know, anything where rehabilitation is required.
I mean, I've experienced it myself after I broke my back, so I can highly recommend the classes for sure. Definitely haven't done the reformer stuff, but I can recommend the classes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of our USP. We do one-to-ones, and then we obviously have physio clinics and stuff. So we kind of, that said, you know, we've got people that are there just for the general health as well. You know, we use it as kind of prevention as much as anything. And I know there's a big movement now with the menopause and women's health, and making sure that you're staying strong into older age. And that's one of my big passions, is trying to empower women to do something that's going to build their bone density, build their muscle strength, and hopefully we'll have a load of boss 80 and 90-year-olds walking around.
I'm sure we will. It's the world. As one, the other, I suppose you've got a few staff, haven't you, that work with you currently? How did you find, and I've had it as well, is that transition of going from kind of working on your own to employing people and all the legalities that come behind employing people? What advice would you give to people that are going through that? That's the next big jump, isn't it, really, when you start up a business?
Yeah. I would say expect the unexpected. Yeah, I think that is probably one of the most challenging parts of where I am now. And not because, you know, as I say, the team that I'm surrounded by are absolutely fantastic. They, you know, they're really dedicated to what they do, but, you know, things crop up, people get ill, you know, people decide to take career changes, and you've always got to literally expect the unexpected. And, you know, whenever you're in that little status quo, enjoy it for the length that it lasts.
It doesn't last
little trouble, so we come and mess it all up again.
I know that.
Yeah. I think it is challenging. And I think if anybody's thinking of making that leap, to think long and hard. Me and my husband were both, you know, we both run businesses, and he is very much of the mindset, I've got my small little team, you know, and a lot of them are family, and he's not deviating from that, because he just doesn't want to deal with all those other headaches. For me, you know, I enjoy having a team. I like, they give me some freedom as well, because I can't teach all the classes, you know, I can't be a one-man band. So they allow me to have the freedom. So again, it's I guess, weighing up what works for you, what works for your lifestyle, and what fits in with your goals.
Yeah, I think I've done big teams, I've done small teams, and big teams are great, but financially you've got such a burden that you've got to make that every month. I've got a small team now of people that I really trust and kind of want to drive forward with, but we also utilize freelancers quite a lot, because I think the world's, again, it's changed since COVID, that people don't want to work for people, they want to work on their own. They're still willing to do the job, but they just want that flexibility. So again, I think it's about weighing up which kind of ones work for you. But yeah, I feel it's one headache that a lot of business owners do have to.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's another bit of advice that I would give anybody starting out, is surround yourself with people that are in business, because, you need somebody to bat ideas off, especially if you're going out on your own. But just people to support and just people to listen to you whinging about, you know, the problems that you have, and just having somebody that actually understands that. Because I think that's another thing about getting people in who have not worked in business. So I've got people that work for me that have been in business themselves and people that haven't, and you can really see the difference in how, you know, the ones that have been in business have a bit of an understanding when, if I'm having a meltdown about something, they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, even myself, before I went into business, would have the odd rant about something, and then actually now the coin is flipped, go, I can see why that was happening. So it's it's a juggle.
It always is. It never stops, unfortunately. You just end up juggling more things. That's the problem. We just touched on there, kind of if you're a bit of advice to kind of give someone starting out, what surround yourself with people that are in business. And ironically, every single podcast that I've done, every single person has said the same thing, is surround yourself with people that either understand or will just listen to you talk so that you can understand yourself. Because I think you get tunnel vision, don't you, when you're in business? You kind of don't see the trees. And talking to people, because I mean, I'm the best at it. I just hide away and don't speak to anyone until it gets to a point where I'm like, man, so surround yourself with people and talking to people. What advice would you give someone who's experienced a bit of a setback? So say everything's thriving, it's doing dead well, and then boom, changes. How would you advise people to get through that? I think that's the point where people go, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I think maybe looking at why, you know, seeing if you can work out why you've had that setback. I mean, COVID is the biggest setback that we had, and it was pretty obvious why that happened. But I think sometimes it might not necessarily be as obvious. And I think understanding, again, that business isn't linear. You know, you're going to have times where you have a bit of boom and then it might quieten off. And I think that was one of the things for me, that kind of the first period that I had when things quietened off, it was like panic stations, when actually, you know, it was just a quieter spell and it picked up. So I guess if you can pinpoint a reason, then obviously doing something about that. But actually, sometimes is it just a little bit of a lull? And if it is a lull, I would say utilize that lull to regroup yourself. Because I think sometimes you can get really, if you're in the thick of it all the time and it's busy, 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 you can't see the wood for the trees, and you're just actually taking some time out just to refresh, reset. And then whether that means you come back with new ideas and you can really get stuck into it.
I suppose that's like it with the gym, isn't it? If you go into the gym or like Pilates or whatever, you go in and you have an injury, for example, a lot of people get frustrated that they can't necessarily get back to do things like straight away. But actually taking that break out makes you 10 times better and you come back 10 times stronger. Absolutely. So it's kind of that analogy, isn't it? Is taking time to yourself, regroup and come back. I love that.
Yeah. And sometimes finding the things that you can do as well. So, you know, that works perfectly with an injury analogy, isn't it? That you're not, just because you broke your ankle doesn't mean that you're totally bedbound. You can find something to do. And I think, again, with business, if you're finding that you've got a quiet time, well, what else can you do? You tidy up your paperwork and your tax and all that boring stuff that you keep putting off. Or is that your time to grow a new idea and kind of take a little bit of a new direction?
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really important that in those moments, as you said, then the things that you've been putting off that you're not getting round to, actually, if you deal with them first and you get over that initial bit whilst you're in the, I need to get things on top of things, the rest of it becomes a breeze, doesn't it? And then you do start to enjoy the journey of it. And it's all up and down business. It's a journey. It changes all the time. So lots to take away from all that, to be fair. Would you like to give everyone a little bit of a roundup as to how and where people can find you, where the studios are, how they can get in touch? We'll put all the links in the bottom of the podcast, but give us your little roundup.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, we're Pilates by Physio on Instagram and Facebook. Our studio is in Heswell, the Wirral, on Pensby Road. But all the information is on the website, which is pilatesbyphysio.com.
And we'll get it, as I said, all linked underneath here. I can highly recommend it. So if you haven't tried Pilates out and you've been dying to try Pilates out, this is the sign to get it done. Thank you so much for coming on, Deb. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I think we're going to be seeing you on one of our other podcasts, the Life Lessons version. So we look forward to seeing that. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Justine.
Thank you.